Finally, Yashwant Varma has resigned. You know what happened to him? Bags of cash were found at the residence of a sitting High Court judge. And what did Judge Varma do then? He denied it. He deflected, stonewalled, sat in defiance while all of us watched in disbelief, viewers. The real question is that if an ordinary person was involved and cash found at, their home, he would have been in handcuffs the next morning. There would have been an FIR within hours. Their homes would have been raided, sealed. Their family would have been questioned. Their life turned upside down, viewers. That is how the law applies to ordinary people in this country, to all of us. But none of that happened with Yashwant Varma. A resignation is not accountability, viewers. The story cannot go away. Where did that cash come from? Who brought it there? Who does it belong to? What was the cash for? Now, these are some questions, fundamental ones that must be answered. The Supreme Court, to its credit, did not look away when this broke. The in-house committee did its work, but viewers, the in-house processes are not a substitute for the law of the land, the law that applies to all of us. An FIR must be filed, a criminal investigation must begin, agencies must follow the money, because that cash did not fall from the sky. It came from somewhere, and we deserve to know from where. Without any delay, let's open this up. Nalin Kohli, senior advocate; Sanjay Hegde, senior advocate; Jayanand Dehadra, advocate on record, Supreme Court; Dr. Vikram Singh, former DGP, Uttar Pradesh. Mr. Kohli, it almost took 1 year for Yashwant Varma to finally tender his resignation after, months of defiance.
Yes, Pranesh. I mean, in a very real sense, Mr. Yashwant Varma and Justice Varma, as he was at that time, his position or continuation in the judiciary was untenable. Because no matter what his stand is, that I am innocent, not innocent, I don't know where the money came from, the fact is that the cash in question was within the premises of the house where he lived. Now, you can argue and say it's the outhouse, but it was finally a secure perimeter. Because when High Court judges or judges of the Supreme Court or anywhere else, their houses are guarded by the police or in terms of proper security. So you can't say that sacks of money came in without any knowledge. And if they came in, you can't deny that you can't say in effect that the police brought the money in. That was not the charge ever. So he was in an untenable position in terms of continuing, because his continuation in effect was a great disservice to all the judges who said we are clean, we do not do all this. And therefore raised a lot of questions on the judiciary. And the judiciary did not look the other way. There was under Chief Justice of India, then it was Justice Sanjeev Khanna. The procedure was followed. There was a hue and cry, but he followed the procedure in letter and spirit as per the Veerasamy judgment. So in effect, what had to happen has eventually happened, the timing of which is only what Justice Varma can answer. He only alone can explain why he waited so long. But another counterpoint would come that when it seemed certain that the impeachment, or rather the word is removal of a High Court judge under the Constitution, if that motion would go through, or it was certain that it would get a widespread support, he must have chosen to do so. The criminal case does not cease. And that's the important point that your viewers must note, that whatever is the criminality in terms of the FIR and the investigation, that's a separate story altogether.
That's right. Mr. Hegde, when will we see that separate story of an FIR being filed, of the, criminal investigation, the process as is with anyone else?
No, that's for the investigating agencies to decide. An FIR could have at any point of time been filed against persons unknown. That was not done. If you need to file an FIR against a sitting judge, then you need the permission of the Chief Justice of India. That's all that the law is. So right now there is nothing which prevents any investigating agency from investigating. And yes, the questions that Nalin has posed and that you have posed, whose money was it? How did it happen to come into the judge's outhouse, they need to be answered. Because let's take it that Justice Varma is entirely innocent. Even if he is entirely innocent, then this kind of money being planted in a judge's house to put him into trouble, that also is criminal. So there has to be a criminal investigation, and however long it takes, whatever route it takes, the truth must emerge.
Mr. Dehadrai, after the cash was found, Justice Varma was sent to the Allahabad High Court. That did not go down well, even with the Bar Association there. They started protesting.
Hi, Pranesh. Good evening. I quite agree with how you framed this entire debate in the beginning, when you said that, a criminal investigation must take place and it must go to the root of this entire issue, this sordid saga. But may I please point out a few things? You have very esteemed panelists, and I think it's for the benefit of your audience also, I should point out a few things, just 4 points. According to me, Pranesh, more explosive than the fact that Justice Varma has resigned today is his 13-page letter, his resignation, his letter to the inquiry committee to withdraw from these proceedings. It is extremely explosive. I'm guessing that some of your esteemed panelists perhaps haven't yet had an opportunity to go through that letter. But it is extremely, extremely explosive in what it says, and more explosive in terms of what the subtext is of that letter. And let me very quickly point it out to you. The reason why Justice Varma chose to withdraw from these proceedings, Pranesh, is because he had no expectation that he would get a fair hearing or a fair shot at justice. This is the reason. This is how he frames it, number one. Number two, he says that CCTV footage, Pranesh, facing the outhouse where this incident took place, where the cash was found, he asked for that CCTV footage and it was denied to him, number one. Number two, the firemen, and there's a very, very senior retired police officer, very senior most on your show, he will bear me out on this aspect as well. The senior police officers who came to the scene of the incident and the firemen, both were dropped as witnesses. So there were a total of 31 witnesses, Pranesh, and 22 came to be dropped after cross-examination because the foundational case against Justice Varma was extremely weak. So the firemen, this is very interesting, the firemen and the police officers, it was their unilateral decision to not record the finding of the cash there, and it was not known, admittedly not known to Justice Varma at the time. And please remember, he and his wife were not in Delhi at the time, they were somewhere else on
That's
holiday.
okay. Mr. Dehadrai, you've cited these 4 points from what Justice Varma had said. I'm sure you're also aware what the 3-member panel, that conducted the in-house proceeding, what they said in the 60-page report.
Hang on, that was a preliminary report, but just the last point, hear me out. Even the firemen's report ultimately that came out after the incident, Pranesh, it does not mention anything about the seizure. All I'm trying to say is, this man, and especially in a judge's inquiry report, as Mr. Hegde very rightly points out, the standard of proof has to be beyond reasonable doubt. It is the same as a criminal inquiry. All I'm saying is, I'm not vouching for him or holding a brief for him. I'm saying that the judge is pointing out to something, there is a subtext. I'm agreeing with you, Pranesh. There is a subtext to his letter. The money perhaps belongs to somebody else. He's saying, give me the CCTV footage. It's not being provided to him. Is somebody being shielded? This is a question that perhaps Justice Varma doesn't want to say.
Dr. Vikram Singh will tell us that when an FIR is registered, and if the person who's named as the accused, what are his rights? I am not quite sure of, when, if at all Justice Varma is named as named in the FIR as accused, and if he asks for the CCTV, then the agencies will have to. They can't just say no. And if there is nothing, I mean, Mr. Dehadrai, if there is nothing to fear, why has he resigned after so many months? And my larger question to you is this, that in the face of an incident like this, allegation like this, should you not recuse yourself when you're transferred to another court?
Very good question. Why has he resigned? It's a two-part answer. One, of course, that only the judge can answer what's going on in his mind. But according to me, I will take a chance at what I think is going on in his mind. He is perhaps so frustrated with this process, he waited. And when he realized that he's not going to get a fair shot at the inquiry committee's hearing, at the hearing he's supposed to get, that is when he finally says that, forget it, there's no point in me appearing before the committee. And that is when he tenders his resignation. He waits. In fact, the fact that he has delayed it goes to show that he was going to participate in these proceedings. I'm not entirely convinced that it's as simple as this, that money was found, belongs to him, therefore he should be hanged. It's much deeper than this.
I'll tell you, Justice Varma, in letter to the Lok Sabha Speaker's probe panel, has said, history will one day record the unfairness with which a sitting High Court judge was treated, and that has marked this entire episode from its inception. I was called upon to answer the unanswerable. Where did the money come from? I was being asked to lead all the evidences in my defense when no foundational case had been established.
He's right, because out of the 31 witnesses, 22 came to be dropped after cross-examination.
But that's
Why?
not
Because
my question. I'm asking a more fundamental question. In light of, such an allegation, when, so much of money is found in your residence, how can you continue as a judge on moral grounds till you are cleared?
Prove that the money belongs to him.
Yeah, which is why I'm saying on moral grounds. Now, Dr. Vikram Singh, how do you see this case? You're on mute, sir.
Good evening, Pranesh and esteemed panelists. I was on your show when this happened on the 14th of March last year, and I said the first fault was that with the Delhi police, they should have lodged an FIR then and there. As Mr. Sanjay Hegde had said, it was not against the judge, it was against a crime that presumably did happen in the outhouses. Now to say that the outhouse was not under his control, he was given and allotted a house which was under paramilitary security, whether he was at a remote place where there was no mobile connectivity does not cut any ice, and the explanation itself is unconvincing. Had Justice Varma been serious about it, he would have also requested for an FIR to be lodged. The very foundation of any criminal investigation is the FIR. All inquiries and all such matters are, of course, subservient to a criminal investigation after the FIR. But let me assure you that nobody was serious on lodging the FIR. I would now like to say that Mr. Sanjay Hegde has said an FIR needs to be lodged, and that the CCTV part is concerned, 80% of the cases that are investigated are not covered by CCTV because most of them are rural in nature, and CCTV came about only very recently. And that cannot be taken as an alibi or a defense that since the CCTV footage is not there, therefore I have a reason to be complacent, or I have a strong defense. By no stretch of imagination, if something is caught, you very rightly mentioned, Pranesh ji, if something like this is recovered from the house of lesser mortals, who is not a High Court judge, well, I would be extremely sorry if he's able to be out of bail or would be standing on his own two legs, because the law will take its own course and he will be. I think there will be consequences for a person.
Let me turn to Mr. Hegde. Mr. Hegde, if this happened to, any one of us on the panel, would it take the same course?
No, it would not take the same course. But if anyone on the panel had become a judge, he would have the same protection. And there is a reason for that protection. Tomorrow, let's assume that there is another government. It wants to frame a judge. If there is some money planted and burnt, then no judge is really safe. Therefore, we have a system whereby a judge can be removed from office only through impeachment. For impeachment, now you have the Judges Inquiry Act. It was the inquiry that was going on. And I do not know whether the inquiry had reached a crucial stage where the judge possibly thought that the inquiry may give a report against him, and then he didn't want to go through the entire parliamentary procedure. In fact, there was a judge of the Calcutta High Court in recent memory who was impeached by Parliament. One House of Parliament passed the motion, and then when the motion was going to the other house, that was the moment that he resigned. The thing is that though we have a cumbersome impeachment procedure, it is necessary in the interests of insulating the judges from all kinds of pressure. However, the judiciary must also be strong enough to deal with rotten apples of their own. And in this particular case, what they did was they kept him away from judicial work. They conducted the inquiry. And just at that crucial point, the judge has obliged with a resignation. There have been cases where the Chief Justice of the day has been able to persuade judges against whom there are charges to resign straight out.
Right.
It has also happened.
Mr. Kohli, what would you want to see in this case now?
The truth. It's important. It's critical. Because this case has several aspects that are of critical importance. I mean, Justice Varma, of course, is entitled as anyone under our constitutional scheme to his full rights. And he's bound to make all the points that he's raised in his detailed sort of letter. And that will be his points of defense. He's been a judge. So obviously he understands how law operates, what are his potential defenses, how he would like to go about it. But I must also point out that irrespective of whether he comes out clean, whether he gets convicted in a criminal investigation, if it's so to be, a trial, the fact is that his position for continuing as a judge after the incident for which there was no cogent answer was untenable. And therefore, it was also a larger institutional issue that the judiciary could not have someone sitting as a colleague in
You're
the
right.
bench, on the bench.
And that's the point I was trying to underline, because judiciary in our country is the moral compass, and if that moral compass falters or begins to falter or is seen to be faltering, then we have a problem. So let's see how this case unfolds. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us with your perspectives. Let's see what happens in this case next. Thank you for watching, viewers. The news are coming up on the other side.